if you can start, but okay, I guess you're right. I guess we cut off a little. Huh. I thought that button was pressed initially. Well, the good news only we the good news is we're only two slides into this, so now we are recording. Okay, so for whatever it's worth, let's just roll back a few slides so we can see just the meaningful contents, contextual stuff. We talked about the artificial intelligence being embedded in how organizations operate, and that this is no longer a future concept. We talked about the AI being able to take over some of the traditional project management tasks that are perhaps not necessarily the ones that are mundane and very repetitive. We also talked about a lot of heavy focus that PMO sometimes makes on governance and reporting. We talked about accountability being fragmented across multiple layers of control rather than being clearly owned. So I think we're almost catching up to date, right? So we talked about materials. Even these kind of materials could be properly, could be effectively generated by AI with proper prompts and built-in knowledge base into Claude, into Gemini, into Microsoft Pilot, into ChatGPT. Those are your companions, and if you properly build their knowledge base, they can be very powerful in producing content and producing data. Okay, so that's just to catch up. So, and the next point I was going to make would be this: many organizations mistakenly view AI only as a tool to improve efficiency. This is actually a misnomer because this isn't exactly that. This view on AI often leads to the focus on reducing costs rather than transforming how we actually do work. And organizational leaders, sometimes often expect incremental improvements instead of radical changes. And therefore, when you leverage AI, you essentially are, may potentially get to radical changes that are going in a very wrong direction. This really undermines this mindset, this approach of it to thinking undermines how disruptive AI truly could be. And what organizations are invited to do instead of thinking of AI as just a way to increase speed and efficiency and productivity, which is also an element of AI, but not the main not the main goal. It may prevent organizations from rethinking the entire organizational structure and operating models that they use. Now, so this is the graphic of actually my own making, and you don't necessarily have to be able to read the pseudocode here, but the message here is this: if IA stands for intellectual assets, I don't treat humans as resources. I treat them as individual intellectual assets. If intellectual assets are equal HR, essential human resources, right? Then intellectual assets would be always less of value than artificial intelligence. Otherwise, intellectual assets will be always higher in value than artificial intelligence. And then there's an end of the statement. What does it really mean? It really comes down to how our HR, internal organizational norms and policies, view individuals, view humans. If we treat people only like resources, like a mouse, this mouse right there, or a keyboard, then of course, sooner rather than later, AI will be able to engulf, will literally have humans for lunch. It will always outbeat humans. Just because it's faster, it's more robust, doesn't require any rest, works 24/7. That is if we treat humans as human resources. However, if we treat people as humans, as intellectual assets, and it's a different cultural and also mental model that you have to apply here, then artificial intelligence would not be able to keep up. We always need to treat artificial intelligence as a non-human entity, right? This is also a question, huge question of ethics. So that's why on the scale on the right hand side, AI is lighter than individual intellectual asset, the actual human. So this is the concept you want to kind of take home. Organizations must shift from viewing people as intellectual, shift from treating people as human resources towards treating them as intellectual assets. And human strengths include things such as creativity, empathy, and judgment, something that AI does not have. And these qualities create value in ways and methods that AI just cannot truly replicate. This is not a trivial point. Now, many traditional PM responsibilities are administrative and easily automated. And this is something that we have to keep in mind. Anything that can be potentially automated is a subject to, to a takeover. If coordination work is increased, over time, we can expect this coordination work to be also handled by an artificial intelligence. Things like tracking and reporting activities may not any longer require a human effort. So this doesn't require what I would refer sometimes as intellectual awareness. Tracking and reporting could be pretty mundane and pretty mechanical processes. Something like this could become a subject to take over by AI. And this is, of course, if we have project management roles that are specifically focused on tracking and reporting, well, then we're going to be competing against the robot. We're going to be competing against the machine. So that's something to keep in mind. Now, so this is something else. This is actually handwritten, hand-created graphic, and this actually is a few years old. I've used it a lot with some of my past clients. I don't think there was anything wrong with someone to trying to change their career or maybe potentially expand the horizon of what they learn, what they know, and do something different from what they have been doing all along. However, this isn't the same as just simply relabeling an existing role into the new role just to keep people busy and create an illusion that, hey, look, we are essentially, we can perform these functions, these roles by using same old people without really changing it. Again, this is the function of HR to implement, but before they implement anything, they obviously have to learn and understand this. What does this really mean, this graphic? I'm sure you're familiar with adaptive ways of working called Scrum or large-scale Scrum. And those adaptive, agile ways of working, product-centric ways of working, require a role called a Scrum Master. Now, this is essentially it's the way to expose the dysfunction of relabeling by having this role essentially kind of mapped to some other artificially created roles just to keep the word manager and lead in them. Many companies have fallen into this trap, and they actually don't really appreciate, don't understand the actual role and what it stands behind it, the role of a Scrum Master. So they kind of do this what's called a mapping exercise. XYZ used to be a role, now we're going to call it a Scrum Master. And the irony of this is that, of course, these people do not do traditional roles anymore, or at least they do not officially do them, and they do not do this role properly. So it's kind of a hybrid, and it has multiple dysfunctions that it brings along with it. Not to say that a person who came from the project management or delivery management role cannot effectively play the role of a Scrum Master. It's just in the same settings for the same team, this may create a conflict of interest. So this person shouldn't be able to pretend doing both for the same team at the same time. Okay, so we really want to think of management as a management function, as something that is no longer tied. So maybe you're familiar with this I don't have a slide for this. It's going to be a figure of speech. In the middle 30s of the last century, during the Industrial Revolution, it was very popular to implement what's called Taylorian management. Frederick Taylor was the co-father of, back then it was called, um, modern management. It was back then. Folks, if you don't mind, just mute yourself. I think there's a lot of scratching sound. I think it's disturbing others as well. So managers as task assigners, managers as people's managers, managers as people that essentially are in charge of deliverables as opposed to letting teams and delivery people deliver. These roles could become obsolete or become less in demand, and not just because of AI. AI will become a huge factor here too, because anything that's mundane and repetitive could be substituted by a machine, by a bot, but also because they would become less relevant. They will be more like trivial with modern ways of working. So what it means really to the management as a function is that it has to shift from controlling work to building organizational, team, and individual capabilities. So we want to think of managers as capability builders. So we want to see managers that become like enablers for teams to operate autonomously. Managers should focus on removing systemic barriers to organizational performance and team performance. So one of the good ways to think of a manager is someone who can not just delegate back to you the problem you just raised to them, but someone who can actually run with this problem and resolve. It's like they remove boulders from the road. These are actually, people that can, like battering rams, that clear the path for developers, for software engineers, at least if you're in software engineering business. Managers should be responsible for developing problem-solving skills across teams and building individuals' capabilities and acumen. And of course, the overall environment should be built, in such a way that it becomes supportive and systemically pleasant for continuous learning and improvements. Okay, so those are the kind of managers that will least likely be substituted or reduced or removed by HR. Okay. So another thing is the real downside of AI. We really want to think of it not necessarily as a threat, but as a mirror. With AI coming into play, coming into the game, we will inevitably and almost very vividly see that some of the old-fashioned command and control management models will be becoming no longer effective. Centralized oversight will slow down, and decision making, especially in complex environments, would be more and more delegated to Gemba, what we call Geinshu Genbutsu in Japanese, place where action takes place and where value gets created. As more and more organizations shall be moving towards self-management teams, and this is inevitable, with AI being implemented on each individual team as an aid, as an assistant. Think of it this way: the traditional management role will become almost like somewhat redundant, because if there is any support for bureaucratic activities, some of the bureaucracy is actually needed. Anything that has to do with logistics or administrative support, each team may have its own AI companion or its own AI assistant. Some of these agents, you can write your own agent for the team. I've seen teams, and I practice with this sometimes too, like building a Python agent that actually brings together different elements, and you can build a super agent of different sub agents. It can handle quite a bit of your Monday procedural human work, labor. So you essentially can't substitute a lot at the team level. And as we continue going into this direction of autonomy, mastery, and purpose, lots of decisions will be made much closer to, as I said, to Gemba, to place where work takes place, and this will increase speed and adaptability of those respective teams. Trust will replace rigid control, and this would be essentially the core, the core management discipline of control will be challenged by the element of trust, autonomy, sovereignty, and purpose, and self-management. Okay. As AI, since AI does not necessarily create problems, but exposes existing inefficiencies, we may need to be more careful, and we need to be a little more diligent when we deal with processes that may potentially be outdated and some of the old structures that are no longer effective. Those roles and processes that are weakly or poorly defined will easily become a prey for AI automation. This will just essentially, AI would be like a mechanism of weeding out and exposing and removing some of the otherwise invisible overhead and content that wasn't necessarily value add. So we need to consider this as a real and present condition. I don't want to call it danger, because we essentially are trying to move as an ecosystem in the direction of progression and ecosystemic improvements. But we have to be cognizant. We cannot be in denial about this. And that's why, if we wanted to maintain and protect and preserve the role, although we shouldn't be really optimized for the role, we should be optimized for other higher systemic goals. But if we really want to preserve some of the greatness of the role, we probably need to rethink what this role today entails, what it does, and how we can support individuals in their own career growth and advancements, so they can start focusing on things that matter and could not be easily overtaken by AI. So another thing I was going to mention was that project management. So when it comes to management, we need to be mindful of what customers actually pay us for. So if you ask an average customer or someone, or even an internal user, what would you be willing to pay your hard cash for, or sponsor and give sponsorship to? Would it be something that a company or an organization or a department would they use to effectively manage their own work, or would it be something more tangible, something that you can actually put to use? And I think the answer would be rather the latter. So it's my way of inviting you to think more in terms of things that real customers and internal users actually value most, and this would be products and various learning systems, and maybe customer-centric platforms that support multiple products. So gradual migration in thinking from fixed projects that are focused on just managing timelines, budget, and scope, and more towards products where we look into business value, customer centricity, product centricity. Those would be the options. So at the end of the day, customers do not buy projects, they buy products. And this is why, if we start thinking more like product-centric organizations that build features of larger products, and maybe even go as far as defining fewer products but wider, so they embrace more different types of features and functionalities meant for different user groups, different user types. We will be in a better position, because at the end of the day, if we really want to follow the money, as we say, if we follow the cash flow, it would be around products and large features as opposed to fixed projects. And of course, we want to shift our mindset also and think of continuous delivery, and emphasize more the learning teams developing learning capabilities so they become more adaptive and self-sustained. Another way to withstand the sheer wind of AI taking over developers' roles, because I'm sure you understand that AI isn't just going to target a single role. We need to make sure that these developers are not just coders that are just copy paste and think in terms of efficiency and productivity of code that they put out. No, we really need to elevate and nurture those developers that can think as customers, can think as entrepreneurs, as business people, and develop business acumen and business empathy, empathy for business people. So again, think of every profession, and we're talking about project management today, but it actually goes to any other profession. It should become like almost like a moving target. A moving target is, in a good sense, that we have to constantly move and improve and adapt in order for us not to become a prey, not to become like a victim for AI to come in and take over. Okay. So again, if you were to compare the left and the right of this image, right, you can probably say to yourself, what sort of work will AI be able to encapsulate and take away from humans sooner? Is it the one that, on the left, where essentially, you can literally automate AI agents to do very effective round robin of daily scrum of a scrum team, and actually they're pretty slick work of facilitating and time boxing and moving sticky notes around on a whiteboard. All that stuff could be easily done by a bot. But now when it comes to doing a much deeper, more systemic dive into mission, vision, OKRs, KPIs, and strategy, this is where you may need an individual with high degree of acumen that is a constantly moving target, if you will, constantly changing and evolving on its own. So, and this is something that AI wouldn't be able to come close. This would remain as a as a standalone and independent function, and would be less susceptible to AI overtake. Almost done, and I would like to open up for Q&A, folks. So we really, there's an old expression. I think it comes from Albert Einstein. You cannot use the same old principles and concepts, and I'm paraphrasing that, to solve the problems that were initially originated by old ways of thinking. Okay, so if legacy thinking persists, if organizations continue applying outdated thinking models to problem solving, we will not essentially change. We will not move. And this is where we absolutely cannot outbeat AI. If we're just going to compete for efficiency, productivity, and speed of delivery, AI will do a number on us as humans at an astronomically high pace. So we absolutely do not withstand any chance there. If we continue doing same exact mistakes by applying same exact mental models and approaches like we did 20, 30 years ago, we should not be expecting any changes. And in the AI-driven world, new mental model must develop. Our systems should become, us as humans, we should become much more adaptive. And we need to try to replace those rigid structures sooner than AI can take over from us, because anything that's static, anything that's predictable, anything that's mundane and repeating, you can train an algorithm to do a much better, much quicker job than we can do as humans. And this is what essentially going to require also senior executives buy in, just not just in power, not just in spirit, and and emotional support. They actually need to roll up the sleeves and do something hands-on with high degree of dedication. Also, this dedication should be in the form of being willing to go the distance and getting involved with people on the ground, with teams, with developers, with engineers, with architects, and getting work done. So essentially, I want to finish this. And there's one more note that I would like to make, one more point I would like to make, that it's not actually in these slides. It's something that really drove me a lot last Friday when I was actually hosting one of the meetings, one of the webinars with another gentleman. But let me get to this in a second. Let me just wrap up this agenda by saying that AI during transformations are unavoidable, and most of them are already on the way. Okay, it is not, for some companies it's a matter of now. For some companies it's a matter of when, as opposed to if. And it's really coming. It's coming at any, it comes almost at any moment. It may come. Roles that do not evolve and do not improve, and I mean not just by changing the wording of the role, without changing the skill set and capabilities. Those roles will actually become obsolete, most likely. Some of them will become obsolete sooner, some will take a little longer, but these are not sustainable roles. And organization really must redefine what value means to them in that context. Because adaptation is going to be no longer an optional thing, it's going to be a mandatory thing. And if a company does not develop this ability to change, it will essentially, as a long-term survival, this company may not have those capabilities and features and functions that will allow it to survive long-term when AI really comes at a full swing. Okay, so that's really the gist of what I wanted to cover today. I do want to make one more point, which was, interesting to me. It was my own learning aha moment too. It wasn't dramatically different from what I have been perceiving all along in terms of AI, but something that I kind of, it helped me conceptualize this in my head. And also, I have a recording of that. If someone is interested, from last Friday, you're more than welcome to listen to this. So there's a going argument, there's a going perception in the industry that AI in general costs lots of jobs to be lost, and people essentially, sometimes there was a forced reduction, sometimes there was just unnecessary reorg. I had the gentleman who was a guest of mine on Friday speaking to my very large public community, and he spoke on AI as a not necessarily being a main cause, not the main cause of layoffs and force reduction. He introduced the idea that AI is clearly a part of it, and it's making it easier for senior executives and organizations to justify the decisions. Hey, we want to be more efficient, we want to be more productive, and AI is doing an amazing job. Yes, as we covered today, for certain roles, it is absolutely the case. But on a much broader scale, on a much wider scale, there's also an element of what's called a COVID overhiring, which essentially means, and the gentleman who spoke about this, his name is Gabriel Steinhardt. He's a very knowledgeable, well-known product manager who has done a lot of research. He essentially argues that we're still living through the aftermath of the highly excessive workforce expansion during COVID, virtual workforce expansion, where the main drivers were cost efficiency and cost reduction by companies. And we're still catching this momentum even today, even after the COVID pandemics. I think there were multiple waves of it. and AI just seems to be a very convenient way to keep the momentum going. So again, I'm not going to steal someone else's thunder because it's a great presentation by someone else, but it's kind of it gives us an additional dimension to understanding why why some of the roles could be challenged. And one thing to keep in mind is that with AI at the doorstep, some roles and some jobs would be more susceptible to this than others. And as humans, as individuals, we need to understand where this threat, if you, for the lack of a better word, is coming from, and how we can adopt and change ourselves and our organizations to be less susceptible to it. So with that, I'm going to pause. I know we have like 10 minutes at least to do a Q&A. So I'm happy to to ask to take any questions if people have any. We have 35 people in the queue, so maybe some people want to raise anything. At this point, you can just unmute yourself. Yeah.
Hey. Yeah, sorry, I had my hand up. I didn't know if we were raising hands or.
Hey, Daniel.
Hey, nice to meet you. Thanks, Gene. I think my question is a little bit broad, but essentially for project managers, I'm trying to figure out what are the 2 or 3 ways you think we can save time now? Maybe things that we haven't done traditionally that we can use AI for to save time. And then maybe what are the top 2 things that we can do to gain value right now from AI? And maybe time efficiency and value are 2 different things at times. Certain things that may still take us time, but we can use AI to sort of generate ideas and other things. And then what are the things we can do, whether it's, meeting minutes or generating, draft project plans? Like, what are the 2, 3 things that you can think of top of mind that people who don't use AI a lot or have not yet should start doing immediately, knowing there's all these other considerations, that we have to sift through, but just trying to get to like where you see some immediate value. What do you recommend there?
This is a good question, Daniel. So first of all, of course, I'm sure you're familiar. There's something called generative Gen AI. Generative AI is like your usual chatbot, like your AI, either ChatGPT or Claude or MS Project or Gemini. It's like Q&A. You ask a question, you give an answer, you get an answer. You can paste data, and you will get you give a prompt, and you get an output. This is like the very basic rudimentary stuff. I mean, I think everyone their mother uses today. Today, actually, in high school and in middle school, they have problems with having students not use it accessible because they lose the plot. They start stop thinking, and Gen AI does it for them. Now, at the same time, this very generative AI could be a great aid. Like you said, writing minutes. AI Companion, I think it's running in the background here. Someone activated, and so be it. So people will probably take this conversation and turn it into like a bulleted list. I'm happy with that, and as long as you are. So stuff like this, anything that it used to be like administrative, it still remains to be administrative, could be very easily substituted by AI. There was agentic AI, right? When you built an agent, and this agent may involve building like a workflow that actually works on your watch or when you are asleep, and still doesn't, like, you can automate stuff on Salesforce, on Jira, on you name it, on almost any tool. You can do stuff. Some of this requires no technical skills other than just basic human logic. Some of this may require some very minimalistic technical skills, like even front-end developers now, or database administrators now heavily use AI to semi-automate or full automate their daily routine. You can use ChatGPT to create a Python script for you, and then have this Python script runs on your command console and do stuff in the open wide web. You can do stuff for marketing, for sales, for documentation sourcing. You can have a folder structure that has 1,000 folders and a few hundred thousand documents. What does it take? What did it take what would it take 10 years ago of a human to do? You would hire a few admin people that would be working day in, day out for months. Today, AI agent can just loop through all of these folders and files and collect immense amount of data. Just recently, for one of my clients, well, for myself, but I use it for a client, I took ChatGPT and I built a custom ChatGPT instance of it by uploading what's called a knowledge base. So you not only do you train your ChatGPT on your patterns and thinking, you also can give it textual and file-based content that it leverages now to respond. So one of the dimensions that I found super effective was to write user stories for software engineers and for business people. So they would not just, I mean, you can train just a regular GPT to do it, but mine has, selfishly, I'm going to say, it has all of my knowledge base and some of the best industry standards sourced from various reputable places and imported into my GPT. And in fact, I have it on my website. So essentially, you are not just following GPT, not just leveraging GPT help. You're leveraging help of GPT who is highly skilled. And this could be of immense support, very helpful. So there are many different ways you can improve and make work more efficient today, Daniel, even for a traditional project manager. Although, again, maybe I'm a little bit biased on this. I don't know enough about your company and I think to some extent I do, but not enough. If you start thinking more like a product-centric company, like a feature development company, then there's a whole myriad of opportunities that will open up. So hopefully this is somewhere close to what you were asking.
Yep. Thank you.
I'll be glad to share some of what the aforementioned GPTs. I'm not sure if you need it, but someone may need it within your organization, so please use.
Great.
Thank you. Folks, anyone else wants to? Yeah, I see there's people are typing, but I just I don't keep up with everything. Something about LLMs. Hold on, let me open up the chat. Too much going on. Hold on. Just yell it out. CRM specialist for no. Ready for, is there any other reasons to choose cloud over local LLMs? I'm not too sure. So hey, if you would like to voice it so I can understand your question better. Because my window is very small. It says, other than initial cost and ready performance, are there any other reasons to choose cloud over local large language models? Well, the only I'll answer to the degree I understand. The main advantage of a cloud over your local environment is that anything that's new, anything that's most recent, more dynamic, gets updated in the cloud so much faster. Of course, I would actually argue if the cost reduction is always comes with the cloud. Sometimes when you do on-site, on-premises hosting, it is could be pretty decent. But I think the biggest advantage, the biggest reason why people go to a cloud companies go to a cloud is because they don't have to have built up internal staff, internal people with expertise. They can always pay for the service. Performance-wise, I'm not too sure because sometimes when you use a cloud, you can have problems with performance because everyone else is using the cloud. When you use it on site, when you use your own hardware, it could be actually more dynamic, more robust. Also, security and confidentiality and safety is often the reason why people do not want to use the cloud. So I'm not sure if this is specific to AI question though. So anyway, that's what I understood from this question. Just in general, if it's better or worse. In fact, I have article written about SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS models and some of the pros and cons. So maybe I'll share with this group as a separate asset to read if you're interested. We're almost at the hour. Anyone else wants to ask anything or or make a comment? Well, let me just say, if you choose to do it later, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me. I'm very easily accessible on LinkedIn. You can also go to my website, and I don't use Facebook as much, so you can ignore this. I run a meetup. This is actually a very old number. It's 8,200 people strong community global. So we sometimes entertain some great conversations. So it's all free, of course. You can come and join us on Fridays, usually Fridays. Other than that, if you have any specific questions on what processes of the current or the modern project management could be potentially improved or automated, and or if you are interested in having any discussions where gravitating more towards product management and product centricity would be a clever thing to do, please let me know. I'll try to share with you some additional relevant assets to this conversation and maybe even an extension of this conversation. And I want to thank you. I know Elaine somewhere here in the queue with us. So I want to thank you personally for bringing me here. And oh yeah, I'm sorry. I see Megan is asking about the recording. As soon as we finish with this recording, with this session, hopefully, fingers crossed, there will be a recording available. And there was nothing that we discussed here today that was confidential or private to your company, unless you tell me otherwise. It's going to be on my website, and I'll just give you a link so you can you can follow that link and download the materials as well, and some additional assets. And nothing really beats a conversation. So if any of this is of interest to you, or maybe a deeper dive, or someone has like, what does it mean to me as a project manager? You're more than welcome to poke me on LinkedIn, and I'm easily accessible person. This is not not much more to say on that. Okay, so we shall call it a day then. Thank you very much for joining. Elaine, did you want to say anything in closure, if you're there?
I don't think Elaine was able to hop on.
Oh, she's not there. Okay. All right, fine. Maybe she wasn't. So thank you, Jamie. Again, pass it on to everyone else. The materials, I will try to make them available in the next few days, as well as the recording. And please reach out if you have any questions. Okay? Well, by the way, I'm in New Jersey. I'm local. And I'm assuming many of you are too, right? Great. Well, have a great the rest of Monday and an effective, productive week.
Thank you, Gene.
Cheers. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much. Bye.